Catching 10,000 fish with the Inuit isn't just about dropping a line and hoping for dinner. It's work that starts long before the first fish is even touched. I followed them through the snow, step by step, learning fast that every move had a reason, even in the freezing cold. I watch as Aklak stops at what looks to me like any other patch of snow. He points to a barely visible line in the distance where the ice meets the shore. River mouth there. Fish like to gather where fresh water meets salt water. More food for them. He explains that these spots can hold 5 times more fish than areas just a half-mile away. One good day here can feed several families for a week. Aklak kneels down and brushes away some snow, revealing a subtle crack in the ice. Tidal crack, he says. Fish use these like highways under the ice. He tells me that the best fishers in his village can identify 8 different types of ice cracks, each attracting different species of fish. I'm surprised when he suddenly changes direction, veering towards some tiny tracks in the snow. Arctic fox came this way yesterday, he points out. Foxes know where the fish are. These little animals are like the food critics of the Arctic. They only visit the 5-star dining spots. I laugh, but quickly realize Aklak isn't joking. Nature's signs are serious business out here. Before committing to a spot, Aklak pulls out a thin fishing line with a small hook. We test first, he explains, carefully dropping it into a small hole he chips with his ice pick. If nothing bites in half an hour, we move. His grandfather taught him that good fishers never waste time on empty water. As we walk, he taps the ice with a metal rod, listening carefully to each sound. Ice is thin here, good for fishing, bad for standing. He explains that the best fishing spots often have ice just 8 inches thick because of underwater currents, while surrounding areas can be 4 feet solid. It's like trying to find the one creaky floorboard in your house, except this one might drop you into freezing water instead of just waking up your parents. Eventually, Aklak stops and nods confidently. Here, this is the place. When I ask how he's so sure, he points to a distant rock formation. My family has fished this exact spot for generations. My father brought me here when I was 10. His father brought him. Some things GPS can't tell you. As Aklak nods with satisfaction and sets down his pack, I realize choosing the fishing spot was just the beginning. He looks up at me with a slight smile. Now the real work starts, he says, and I can only wonder what that means as he reaches for his tools. Aklak pulls out what looks like an oversized corkscrew from his pack. Hand auger, he says, handing it to me. Want to try? I take it, surprised by its weight, and he laughs at my expression. Heavy, yes? Now imagine drilling 10 or 20 holes with it. The ice beneath our feet isn't just frozen water. It's a 3-foot thick barrier between us and dinner. I watch as Aklak places the sharp metal tip against the ice and turns the handle with practiced ease. The blade bites down, carving a perfect circle as he cranks steadily. In the coldest months, this ice gets almost 4 feet thick, he explains between turns. Ice drilling competition is the only sport where coming in last place means you might also be coming in wet. Some younger members of his community have switched to gas-powered drills that can cut a hole in under a minute, but many elders still prefer hand augers. They're silent, never run out of fuel, and force you to respect the ice by working for every inch. We need 5 holes today, Aklak says, finishing the first one, each about 30 feet apart. He explains that the holes will form a line under the ice, allowing them to stretch fishing nets from one opening to another. As I take my turn with the auger, the resistance surprises me. My arms burn after just a few rotations. Keep going, Aklak encourages. We have 4 more to make. Once the hole breaks through, Aklak quickly scoops out the slush with a metal ladle. Work fast, he says. In these temperatures, new ice starts forming in minutes. Around each completed hole, he packs snow into a small wall on the windward side. I ask if it's for insulation. No, he replies, blowing on his bare hands before pulling mittens back on. Just block the wind so our fingers still work. Can't fish if your hands turn into popsicles. With the final hole complete, Aklak kneels beside the first one and peers into the dark water below. I notice he's already reaching for a long wooden pole with a hooked end, Now comes the tricky part, he says, preparing for the next challenge that awaits beneath the frozen surface. The wooden pole in Aklak's hands is about 3 meters long with a metal hook at one end. He lowers it into the first hole, then maneuvers it underneath the ice toward the second hole 30 feet away. This is where the magic happens, he explains. We need to get this pole from one hole to another without seeing where it goes. He gets down on his stomach, ear pressed against the ice, listening to the soft scraping sound of wood against the frozen underside. After several minutes of careful work, the hooked end of the pole finally appears at the second hole. Inuit fishing is like playing pool, Aklak jokes, except the table is frozen and you can't see the balls. With the pole successfully threaded through, Aklak ties a rope to its hooked end and pulls it back through the first hole, dragging the rope along underneath the ice. Now there's a continuous line running between holes. He ties a fishing net to one end of the rope. The net has wooden floats at the top edge and stone weights at the bottom to keep it vertical under the ice, creating an underwater barrier for catching fish. Carefully, Aklak pulls the rope from the second hole, drawing the net under the ice. He anchors the ends with metal rods hammered into the ice. In the old days, they used antlers or bones instead. Now we wait, he says, looking out across the white expanse. The hard part is done. A mischievous smile appears on his face. Unless the net tangles, then someone must go in after it. I laugh nervously, hoping he's joking, but his expression tells me he's completely serious. The thought makes me shiver more than the cold as we prepare for the next stage of our icy harvest. Let's check the nets, Aklak says, after a few hours have passed. He breaks the thin ice that's formed over the first hole with a quick tap of his boot. Ice fishing, the only sport where your fishing hole keeps trying to close itself. From his pocket, he pulls out leather gloves. These will last about 10 minutes before they're soaked through, he explains. After that, fingers just have to be tough. Kneeling at the edge of the hole, Aklak reaches into the dark water and begins pulling the net rope. The work is rhythmic but demanding. Pull, coil, pull, coil. Water from the rope immediately soaks through his gloves. I offer to help and instantly regret it. The rope feels like a frozen snake, numbing my fingers through my own gloves. Cold hands, full stomach, Aklak quips. And if your hands fall off, at least you won't need to wash them before dinner. Suddenly there's resistance on the line. The net begins to emerge, and silver scales flash in the weak winter sunlight. Arctic char with speckled backs and bright orange bellies come up stiff and already half frozen. Fresh as it gets, Aklak says proudly. Nature's refrigerator. I'm amazed at the haul, at least 40 fish. We don't count fish, he says, noticing my attempt to tally them. They get insulted if the number is too low and they tell their friends not to visit our nets. By the time we finish, my hands feel like frozen claws. Aklak hands me dried fish skins to put inside my gloves. Old trick. Fish oil keeps hands warmer, he explains. As we move to the next hole, I spot a strange tool leaning against Aklak's sled with a distinctive 3-pronged end that catches the light. While nets do most of the heavy lifting, Aklak mentions there's another way to catch fish that doesn't require hours of waiting. When you want dinner now, not tomorrow, he explains. Jigging is the answer. He selects a spot about 50 yards from our net holes where the ice forms a small, unusual bump. With a practiced swing of his ice pick, he chips a new hole, smaller than our net holes, just big enough for a single line. From his pack, Aklak produces what looks like a short wooden stick with fishing line wrapped around it. No reel, no fancy gear, just a stick, line, and a tiny metal hook. He carefully baits the hook with a small piece of white fat. Seal blubber, he explains. Fish can smell this from 50 feet away underwater. The technique itself is hypnotic to watch. Aklak drops the line about 8 feet down, then begins a gentle, rhythmic movement with his wrist. The bait bounces lightly up and down in the water below. Not too fast, not too slow, he instructs. Fish are lazy in cold water, make it easy for them. Jigging is like dating, he says with a grin. If you come on too strong, they swim away. Too boring, they ignore you. Just right. And they're hooked for life. Well, for what little life they have left. What makes jigging special is its versatility. Net fishing targets specific depths, but jigging allows fishers to adjust to catch whatever is active. During spring migration, skilled jiggers can catch up to 30 fish in a single hour. Aklak tells me about jigging competitions held in some communities. The record holder caught 10 fish in 7 minutes. He claims he whispered sweet nothings to them first. Next year, everyone was sweet-talking their fishing holes, but nobody beat his time. Suddenly, Aklak's hand twitches, and with a quick upward flick of his wrist, he pulls up a small but plump char. Within 20 minutes, he's caught 5 decent-sized fish, enough for a good meal. While he works, I notice his gaze occasionally drifting toward a distant figure on the ice. Another fisher standing perfectly still over a hole, holding what must be the 3-pronged spear I spotted earlier. The fisher hasn't moved for at least 15 minutes, showing a level of patience that seems almost superhuman in this bitter cold. What about him? I ask Aklak, nodding toward the distant figure who hasn't moved in what feels like forever. He hunts with kakivak, Aklak explains, pointing to the 3-pronged spear leaning against his sled. Most difficult fishing method. Takes more patience than nets. The fisher crouches over a small hole, focused entirely on the water below. His kakivak, a traditional Inuit spear with 3 barbed prongs, is poised and ready. He's been in this position for nearly an hour without moving. Must watch for shadow, Aklak whispers. When a fish swims under a hole, strike fast. No second chance. Kakivak fishing requires 3 things. Good eyes, quick hands, and a backside that doesn't mind freezing solid. Most young people today have none of these. Suddenly, in a movement so quick it's almost a blur, the fisher plunges the spear into the water. When he lifts it, a large Arctic char writhes on the prongs, securely caught by the barbs. 1 fish per hour is a good rate for kakivak, Aklak tells me. Not efficient like nets, but some fish too clever for other methods. My uncle once stood so long with kakivak that when he finally caught a fish, his legs had frozen stiff, had to drag him home still in a crouching position, but he never let go of the fish. As we walk away, Aklak glances at the sky. Weather changing, he observes, his eyes scanning the horizon where clouds are beginning to gather. I follow Aklak's gaze to the horizon. The sky looks pretty much the same to me, just endless blue with a few clouds. But he sees something different. Overcast coming soon, he says with certainty. Good for fishing. Fish get more active when clouds cover the sun. He explains that fish generally feed more readily during periods of low barometric pressure, which often comes with cloudy weather. See those clouds? He points to thin, wispy formations gathering in the north. North wind coming brings food for fish. Northern winds push surface water toward land, creating underwater currents that stir up small organisms and attract hungry fish. I'm surprised when Aklak suddenly touches his left knee, flexing it slightly. Knee says storm in 6 hours, he tells me. I think he's joking until he adds, more accurate than any weather app. Many experienced fishers develop a sensitivity to pressure changes in their joints from years on the ice. My grandmother could predict storms 3 days away, just by how her coffee tasted. Nobody believed her until the community got a weather station. Turns out she was right 86% of the time. The station was only right 79%. Temperature shifts are equally important. Too much warming makes fish go deep, Aklak explains, dipping his bare hand into one of our fishing holes to feel a subtle temperature difference. When snow starts to fall heavily, we have maybe 2 hours of good fishing left, he says. Fish know a storm is coming. They eat fast before hiding. As we gather our catch, I notice the light has indeed changed, taking on a flatter quality as thin clouds spread across the sky. Aklak nods with satisfaction. Weather changing exactly as expected. Now we should get fish back to village before they freeze too hard for stacking. With the weather changing and our catch substantial, Aklak begins the careful work of preparing the fish for transport. Not just throwing in pile, he explains. must be arranged properly or will break during the journey. The frozen fish are stacked in an organized pattern, each one placed head to tail in tight rows. This interlocking system prevents shifting during transport and protects more fragile parts like fins and tails. Fish architecture, Aklak calls it, as he demonstrates the technique. He takes a length of rope and secures the pile with a cross-hatch pattern that resembles elaborate gift wrapping. The rope is pulled tight at each intersection, creating tension that holds everything firmly in place. Once secured, the fish pile is attached to Aklak's snowmobile-pulled sled. In my father's time, only dog teams, he tells me. 12 good dogs could pull 2,000 pounds of fish across 20 miles of ice. The sled runners are coated with a thin layer of ice before we depart, counterintuitive to me. But Aklak explains that ice on ice creates less friction than metal on ice in very cold temperatures. Modern sleds with plastic bottoms are like cheating, he jokes. Where's the challenge if your sled doesn't stick to the ground every half mile? We set off across the ice, keeping to specific trails that Aklak knows are smooth. Rough trail breaks fish, he explains. Broken fish don't store well. As we travel, Aklak teaches me how to assess the fish without even looking at them. Listen for sound, he instructs. If they clink like glass, they're frozen solid. If not, they get eaten sooner. Every stop includes a fish count, not for bragging but to make sure no one's falling off the sled. As we approach the village, Aklak begins pointing out flat areas where snow has been carefully packed down. Sorting grounds, he explains. Each family has their own spot where fish will be unloaded and sorted into different groups. Upon reaching the village, we unload our haul onto a large, flat area where the snow has been packed down to a smooth surface. Several other families are also at their designated spots, working through their own catches of the day. The area buzzes with activity as fish are examined, categorized, and distributed. The sorting process begins immediately. Aklak's experienced hands move quickly, picking up each fish and making a split-second assessment before placing it in one of several growing piles. No measuring tools, no scales, just decades of knowledge guiding each decision. Big ones here, medium there, small over there, he explains, pointing to the distinct groupings forming on the snow. Size matters not just for meal planning, but for different preservation methods. The largest fish often go to drying racks, medium ones might be frozen whole, while smaller ones could become part of fermented mixtures. Quality also determines a fish's fate. Clean ones go to drying, Aklak tells me, holding up a perfect specimen. Broken ones to stew pot, small ones to dogs or bait. Nothing is wasted, and each type of fish has its ideal use. What surprises me most is the complete absence of written labels or markers. In a community where a single family might store several thousand fish for winter, how does anyone remember which pile is which? We know, Aklak says simply when I ask. Some storage piles are marked with subtle indicators, distinct sticks placed at certain angles, small carved stones, or patterns in how the fish are stacked. But many are distinguished only by location and memory. A family might have 20 different storage spots across the community, each containing specific types of fish caught at particular times. My cousin once forgot where he put 500 fish, Aklak tells me with a grin. Spent all winter claiming somebody stole them. Next spring, the smell revealed the truth. Now nobody lets him store fish alone. As the sorted piles grow, they're moved to more permanent storage locations. Some are placed in dugout pits that act as natural freezers, the permafrost keeping everything solidly frozen year-round. Others go to raised platforms that keep them safe from hungry foxes and other opportunistic animals. The community's total winter fish stores can be massive. In some northern villages, over 50,000 fish might be caught and stored in a single season, providing essential protein through the long winter months when other food sources are scarce. A single extended family might consume over 2,000 fish during a typical winter. Temperature management is crucial during storage. Too warm, and the fish spoil. Too cold, and they freeze so solid they become difficult to work with later. The ideal storage temperature is around 15 degrees below freezing. Cold enough to preserve, but not so cold that the fish can't be easily processed when needed. Everyone knows which fish stack is theirs, Aklak explains as we finish organising the day's catch. If not, a quiet argument follows. Fish represent not just food, but security in a harsh environment, so respecting ownership boundaries is essential to community harmony. With our sorting complete, Aklak eyes a particular pile, fish heads, spines, and bits that might seem like waste to outsiders. These parts, he says with a nod, most important of all. He begins gathering them carefully, explaining that even the smallest scraps have specific uses in the community's food system. These are not leftovers, Aklak says firmly, as he collects fish heads, spines, and other parts I would have discarded. These are ingredients. In Inuit fishing culture, waste simply doesn't exist. Fish heads and bones are boiled into rich, nutritious broth that forms the base for winter soups and stews. A single pot of fish head broth contains more calcium than 20 glasses of milk. Guts and entrails become powerful bait for future fishing or are fermented into specialized foods that keep well through winter. Some communities even use dried fish skin as emergency lamp wicks when seal oil runs low. We have 100 words for snow and 0 words for throw it away, Aklak explains with a slight smile. Even fish that accidentally spoil during storage find purpose as trap bait for catching fox and other fur-bearing animals. The skins from these animals then become mittens and boot linings, essential for the next fishing season. As Aklak finishes his work, I realise I've witnessed something far beyond a simple fishing trip. I've seen a perfect circle where everything serves a purpose. Everything connects, and nothing is ever truly lost.